As always, we'll begin with 3 deep breaths. So let's take a deep breath in through the nose, softly out of the mouth, in again through the nose, softly out of the mouth. Last one in through the nose and hold it at the top. As you hold it at the top, see if you can soften into the breath when I say 1, let out a nice sigh. 3, 2, 1. So today's topic is going to be what has been supporting me recently in terms of chronic illness. So for those of you that have been here for a while, I'm just going to recap what has went on. So for those of you that are new, this will be important. At the end of 2022, I was living in Mexico and I was bit by a mosquito that was carrying dengue fever, West Nile virus, and later there were not negative Lyme results, but multiple inconclusive Lyme results that came with it. So since October of 2022, I have been going back and forth and battling with different chronic illness symptoms. Some that made sense and were like, yes, and also like certain things that didn't make sense and were maybe like, oh, maybe this is endometriosis, maybe this is this, maybe this is that. Like, there are just so many symptoms, chronic symptoms that overlap. Even the idea of just chronic stress, chronic fatigue, right? Like, we all experience burnout in our society. And so the idea of chronic symptoms is also extremely important because I want people to recognize and understand you may not identify with the idea of having a chronic illness because maybe you quite literally don't have a chronic illness, but you have these symptoms that fall underneath chronic fatigue, chronic stress, just things that most people sadly in our times are dealing with. So with that being said, there were a plethora of issues that I had, ranging from simply my blood pressure completely spiking and needing to go to the emergency room immediately because all of a sudden my blood pressure spiked and went super high, and then my vision was blurry and I couldn't see, to extremely intense migraines, all the way to not being able to walk. Like, something that was really difficult for me was to recognize that I turned 26 while I was in the hospital, that month that I had got bit by the mosquito. And to think like, wow, I'm in my 20s and I need somebody to hold on to my arm and walk me was a very devastating realization that I really did not think I was going to have to experience. Alas. I want to talk about all of the things that I've done and then what is the thing that has like really been supporting me lately. And this is not medical advice. This is just, I am hoping that somebody listens to this podcast, whether there's somebody who actually has Lyme's, POTS, MS, or they're just somebody who's like, I am just chronically fatigued. Like, I cannot break out of being so fucking tired. Anybody that just wants to listen to somebody else who has really been through this ringer and just feels like they need somebody to be able to listen to and maybe connect to. So again, this is not legal advice. So I did all the things. I am not a holistic wellness person that doesn't believe in modern medicine. I think the both of them together are superpowers. Like, I think it's incredible. Most of the time, my body works better with holistic wellness. And that's something that my mom noticed even when I was younger, was that the idea of drinking a certain tea made whatever symptom I was having feel better. Like, just say for allergies, right? Like seasonal allergies and something like that. Then me taking a ton of Claritin, I would have adverse effects to certain medications that doctors would prescribe for many years. This was just like a thing that I had. So my body tends to do better with holistic wellness, but I am so not opposed to the modern medicine world. So I did all of the things. First off, I stayed in the hospital for a month in Mexico. And then after a month, when they knew that I wasn't internally bleeding or there wasn't the potential for me to start hemorrhaging, the doctor was like, you need to go back to the States because I don't understand why you're not getting better. So I went back to the States and I did all the things. I went to the infectious disease doctor. I went to a cardiologist. I went to a neurologist. Any specialist, I saw them. And I have to say, as somebody who feels much more comfortable in the holistic wellness world, I had an incredible interaction with not just my infectious disease doctor, who he's on Staten Island, he's incredible, but also the neurologist that I worked with. He was very old. He's like in his 80s, the infectious disease doctor. And so the fact that he's open to the idea of kambo, which is a plant medicine that my partner serves at our retreats and at our gatherings, he wanted to know more about ayahuasca. Like, it was just so wonderful to see how open he was to all of it, and how, kambo is really great for Lyme's. And Dylan has a lot of Lyme's disease clients that come again and again. And he was so intrigued by it. But then also I got to be with the neurologist. She works at NYU Langone. And I saw her in Brooklyn. And she was young, and she was also open to all of it as well. Like, hearing her say to me, like, she walked into the first session that I had with her, and I had the lights off in the room, and she was like, "You're not feeling too well today?" And like, she mentioned the little headache cap, and we were talking about breathwork. I'm a breathwork practitioner. And she was interested to know more about me being a breathwork practitioner and what I thought about these things. And then, of course, I was interested as a neurologist what she thought about breathwork and how for it she was. So it was beautiful for me to see this integration of both worlds at that point, because at that point, I was still feeling let down by everyone. So I did all of the things. I took a ton of different medications. I was going and getting all these tests done. I was constantly getting blood work done. And then I was also going to the naturopath that I've worked with for many years. I did what my friend Catherine lovingly calls the air diet. It's a candida cleanse diet, but not like the ones that you see on the internet that are kind of surface level, super deep. I wasn't eating any additives. I also wasn't really eating almost anything. I could basically just have white fish, white meat, so chicken, quinoa. I was having tilapia for breakfast because I couldn't even figure out what else to have. And for 9 months, I had absolutely no sugars. Obviously, I had natural sugars in the form of fruit, but I didn't have too much of that. So my dessert for 9 months was a chia seed pudding. And I actually have that recipe, and it gets still traction on TikTok every once in a while, because there are a lot of people that are just trying to cut out sugar in general. It was a very difficult 9 months of that diet. However, what I will say, it didn't get rid of the symptoms that I was hoping it would get rid of, but it was an incredible experience. As somebody who sits with plant medicine, and we do, Dylan and I take it as a compliment that for our retreats, people say you have a very strict dieta process. Our dieta process is 2 months long. Even though you only spend 7 days with us in person, it's a 2-month long experience. And so because I've done very strict dietas over the years, it wasn't super out of my range. Like, I kind of understood the idea behind it, but still, it doesn't feel good to see people eating all this food around you and know that you can't eat any of that. But oddly enough, I will say at the end, when I broke my 9 months, I broke it with a sandwich from the fucking deli, of course. And that first bite, my soul was so filled, but my body was like, oh my God, this is horrible. And so it was a very interesting position to see both sides of that. So anyway, I'm sharing all of this to say I was doing all of the things. Of course, I was still doing breath work. Dylan was serving me kambo as often as he could, because at one point my body was not even healthy enough to receive kambo. And that's a side note, that is why you should always work with practitioners that have a science background in some way, shape, or form, and are willing to continue their education, because there were so many kambo practitioners who were like, oh my God, all you need is kambo and you'll be good. And Dylan was like, if you look at what she's receiving from all of these medical tests, her body physically would not be able to handle kambo. So take a deep breath. Lots of things being said. If you're watching this on YouTube, this looks crazy. I'm sitting on the couch. I just took a shower. My hair's up in a clip. But I really wanted to discuss this and get this out there. So now that you know all of those things that I've been doing, when I really started to notice that I was feeling better, it was probably about 2 months ago. 2 months ago is May of 2025? I got bit by that mosquito in September of 2022. That's a long time. And there are also some other people who go many, many, many more years with undiagnosed things and more symptoms that pop up, and things just get worse, and they get gaslit by their holistic practitioners as well as their modern medicine practitioners. I really cannot stress that enough, that no one side of the medicine field was better than the other. I felt it was important for me to continue to go to both sides because I do think together they work very well together. With that being said, I moved to Peru in December of 2023. So I got bit by that mosquito in September of 2022. I finally went back to New York, which is where I'm originally from, in November. Or it was the last few days, because I believe we were there for Halloween. It was the last few days of October of 2022. And then after being there for a little bit over a year, Dylan and I were hosting another Peru retreat. And we had decided that was it. We were going to go to Peru and we were going to figure it out. If I got sicker, because in that time while I was in New York, I was still in and out of the hospital. My mom would randomly bring me because my body wasn't holding on to water. I was constantly dehydrated. You could see it in my face. You could see it on my skin. Things were just not working out for me. And in a pro and con way, when I went to the hospital, every time I would say, I was bit by a mosquito, West Nile dengue, they would immediately quarantine me. So me and my mom kind of joked about it, that we always got to be in these private rooms. And of course they would tell my mom, do you want to be put in a hazmat suit? She's like, the kid lives with me. She doesn't have it, but I understand this is protocol. So she's like, I don't want the hazmat suit. I'm going to just sit next to my daughter. And so it was very tough for me throughout that time. So I want you to recognize what I'm also sharing is environment. At this time, while I was living in New York, there was arguments happening inside of the home. Not everybody was on the same page. The environment of, Staten Island, New York is not always necessarily very calm. I have a lot of love for New York City, and I feel like that's because I go out of my way at this point in my life to find beautiful little pockets of nature and excitement and beauty all throughout the 5 boroughs. But the reality is, it's still a very not community-driven space. It's everybody's out for themselves. And, I was there for 15 months. And I recognized, this is also another piece to just society's puzzle in general. Post-COVID, people just don't have the time and energy to put into relationships and friendships. I feel like before COVID, pre-COVID times, my friends and I were always around each other. We were always doing something. Post-COVID, another change to that for me personally was that I decided to get sober. Now, I don't consider myself fully sober because I do plant medicine, but I got sober in the sense that there were no hard drugs that I was doing. I stopped smoking marijuana. I stopped drinking alcohol. So you stop getting invited to the hangouts. You stop getting invited to the bars. And so I also noticed that paired along with post-COVID and people just being exhausted and depressed in general, I had my spiritual community, but my spiritual community didn't live within a 5-10 minute drive from me, right? For me on Staten Island, I would say most of my community that I resonate with deeply and have a really good connection with, I feel is either in New Jersey or is in Brooklyn, Manhattan. And so that's an hour drive away if there's no traffic. And of course, there's always traffic. So there's no community. The food isn't necessarily fresh. And there was just stressors there. Even the stressor of my family dynamics. I'm no contact with a lot of people in my family. I'm limited contact with other people in my family. And it's just, for me, sometimes a hostile environment to be on Staten Island because they're just reminders of certain things. So we decide to come to Peru, and I decide whatever's going to happen to my body, it is what it is. But of course, that brought on more symptoms because then I was stressing. Oh, well, now I won't have the beauty of New York's modern medicine. I live in the Cusco region, so I'm going to have to deal with whatever the Cusco region doctors and medical staff have here. I'm giving up the comfort of being able to use the stuff that's in New York. But I also knew that I had to do that because I just needed a change of something. I talked about this a few months ago and I didn't go into it deeply. I think I made stories on Instagram and I posted about it on TikTok. Sometimes to make the most drastic changes in our lives, we need to get sick of ourselves. And for me, being in New York, Dylan and I, we make an honest living. It's a humble living. But I don't make the amount of money to be able to buy a home or an apartment in New York City. It's just not something that is feasible for us financially. And that's okay. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Everybody is at different points in their life. And also, I didn't necessarily want to live in New York City. I love going back and seeing my friends and my family and the things that I know, but I didn't necessarily want that for myself. So when we decided to pack up all of our things and say, you know what, for this next retreat, we're fucking staying. We're bringing our suitcases. We brought a suitcase and our backpacks and we were like, fuck it, we're landing. I had gotten sick of the everyday, okay, I've got a migraine. I have to stay in my bedroom. Okay, I really need this migraine to go on because I'm an entrepreneur. I have 2 businesses, but they are both service-based businesses. And when you have any type of chronic symptom or chronic illness, it can be devastating because your business really takes a hit. You need to get crafty. Having a service-based business, I think, is beautiful because I love providing services for people. And when you are sick and you can't show up for that shit, it is devastating. So I was also feeling the mental toll of, first off, mentally, I recognized I didn't really have community to support me while my body felt like it was decaying. I didn't have access to as much nature as I would have liked. I was also not even having enough access to energy for me to work throughout the day. So we get to Peru, and I would say for the first few months while we were here, when it comes to hosting the retreats, this is a side note if you work with plant medicine or you're interested in working with plant medicine, I always say the way we host our retreats is quite intense, but the energy, it's just, we run on the fumes of love. When you are in devotion to what it is that you have faith in, whether you're somebody who's like deeply devoted to God, Krishna, maybe you're devoted deeply to crystals or astrology, or you're devoted to plant medicine, the yogic traditions, right? And when you do what you love, there's somehow, some way, this boost. I know this is quite woo-woo, but there's somehow like this boost in energy where you're able to get through things with the love of whatever it is that you have faith in supporting you. We'll take another deep breath. Isn't that so incredible? And I'd be interested to know if you resonate. So whatever platform you're listening to this on, please tell me, do you resonate with that sentiment? Have you felt that before and haven't felt that in a long time? It's something that I say over and over again. And truth be told, I was very nervous prior to the retreat. What if I get a headache? And then how am I supposed to support in ceremony, right? Like a San Pedro Wachuma ceremony is 12 hours. And I was like, how am I supposed to support if I don't have that? What happens if during the ayahuasca ceremonies, I need to take a break? It's like, you can't really take a break when you guys are head facilitators. Now, we do small retreats, so it's not like we have a group of 40 to 60 people. We always have below 10. So the space would be okay if I needed to take time for myself. But again, the energy of the medicine shows up and is like, hey, let me remind you that there is a mystical part to being alive. So anyway, so that week I felt fucking fantastic. It was an incredible retreat. And then for the few months following, I had the migraines again. I would get really winded walking. I would feel we got another blood pressure machine while we were here so that we could like track my blood pressure. I could feel it rising and falling. There was a wonderful doctor in the town that I was in, and he was really great for me to talk to. I also started seeing another traditional Chinese medicine doctor, but out here. If you are in New York City or in the area and you would like to see a traditional Chinese medicine doctor that I have seen that I can vouch for that is incredible, the place is called Lin, Lin, Sister, and it's in Chinatown in Manhattan. Dr. Frank, he's incredible. I've cried in that man's office many times. He does TCM and acupuncture, and he's just wonderful. And although what he might give you does not taste good, but remember, he's not giving you tea for you to just sit on the couch like we are right now, having a chat, drinking a cup of warm, yummy tea. He's giving you tea so that it will heal your body and your mind. But 10 out of 10 recommend him. So I was working with a TCM here as well as another like modern medicine doctor here as well. And for the first few months, I definitely felt like, oh my God, can I make it here? Will I make it here? And then I just let myself tap into, okay, I live in the mountains. Okay, we've got really incredible rivers. How can I connect deeper with the rivers? How can I connect deeper with the mountains? And I know, again, this is woo-woo. And while we were in the States, I was doing that too. We were taking day road trips in upstate New York. We were going places in New Jersey, in Connecticut, in Pennsylvania. I absolutely love Pennsylvania. We would love to, we're trying to figure out if we can do a retreat in Pennsylvania or New York State in September of this year, 2025. Fingers, toes, and titties crossed that we get to visit and see some of you wonderful people. But anyway, we were taking those day trips, but the land is different. The energy is different here versus back there. I truly do believe that the way that the people that live on this land, it's a mix, right? It's a mix of people that are still very much so rooted into the indigenous Quiero wisdom of the Andean people, mixed in with the colonized, very super hyper religious people. You know, they were colonized by Spain here, so they love white Jesus. They love white Jesus. But all of that to say, there's a mixture, right? There's a back and forth of the two of those. But what still stands, regardless of if they're super religious and they love white Jesus or they lean more towards the indigenous practices, the people that live on this land love this land. They're so grateful for the way that the sun comes up every day. They're so grateful for the way that the mountains live. They're grateful for dry season and they're grateful for rainy season. They're grateful for their rivers. They're grateful for how their food grows and their access to food here. There's just something different about the way that the people that live here respond to being alive on this land versus the way that people back where I am from respond and live on this land. Now, granted, don't get me wrong, Peruvians are fucking hustlers, okay? Like, I have neighbors that I take the dog out nice and early in the morning. They're working already, you know? It's like 6, 7 a.m. They're ready to go for the day. They're tending the land. They're tending to their animals. And they will work all day until, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see that I have my yellow lights that are not my favorite, but the sun is down. There's no natural light anymore. They'll work till the sun goes down. So this isn't to say that, oh, like hustle culture only exists in the States. It's just from my experience. This is my opinion. No one's asking for it, but I'm giving it. The difference is the way that the people still have gratitude for the land. When I am in Staten Island visiting my mom, she has a tree in the front of her house. If you live on Staten Island or near Staten Island and you know where my mother lives, you've been to her house, if you want to go by and bring rocks and shells or flowers and put them around the tree in front of her house, she would be grateful and she would not be weirded out, although she might peek her head out if she's home to see you. I have been doing that for years. There are also favorite trees, quote unquote, that I have in the area of my mom that I bring stuff to often. There are certain places at the beach that I go to, or in the Greenbelt on Staten Island, that I have certain places that I go to connect with the land and say thank you. Just because you live in a city doesn't mean that the land underneath the concrete is not alive and not listening. And I do think that the land in Staten Island was doing its best to support me in healing as best as it could. And I had a very emotional goodbye with my mom's tree, the tree right outside of her house, you know, because I did feel like that tree really wanted the best for me, and to be super woo-woo in this moment, like letting me know, go to Peru. You can still talk to me. You can still send me love. Like, the earth is the earth. Like, if you want to talk to me, just talk to me. And because it's not really a but, and I think that if more people in those areas understood how to talk to the land would be more alive, because that's how I feel here. The land that I live on right now is much more alive because there are so many people giving respect every single day to the land beneath them. Now, yes, you can also argue with me, oh, but Dan, like, you live in the Andes Mountains, that's much prettier than the beaches of Staten Island. It doesn't matter. The earth is still the earth, and if we live there, it's so important for us to say thank you to the earth. So, that is the first piece of the puzzle that I really believe has helped me feel better, because after a few months of me just being like, all right, I gotta go sit outside. All right, my head kind of hurts right now. Let me lie down with my headache cap on, and then I'm gonna go to the river down the road from me, even if it's just for 10, 15 minutes. And I stayed consistent with that. And then we found our dog. He was dying on a mountain. That's a conversation for a different day. But I do feel like he found us, even though we found him there. And so that was helpful as well, because I had now this 4 to 6 week old puppy who was dying in a trash bag, now looking at me for security and safety to take care of him. And part of that was taking him on walks, going outside with him, taking him to the river, exploring the surrounding areas. So having that thing to take care of was quite impactful for me, and continuing to get outside. The whole time while I was in Staten Island, after I got bit by the mosquito, so when I got bit by the mosquito in Mexico, my landlord was like, oh my goodness, you have dengue, don't go outside. The sun can make the dengue worse. So I think I internalized what she said. And when I was in Staten Island, if I was out in the sun for more than 2 hours, I'd be like, oh my God, I'm so nauseous. I don't feel right. My skin is too tight. Like, my head hurts, like all this stuff, just really experiencing anxiety from being in the sun. You don't really have a choice when you live here. And the reason why I say that is we're 13,000 feet above sea level where I live now. And I swear, sometimes it feels like I could touch the sun, or I could touch the moon at night, or the stars, because that's how close to the sky I feel at this point. So I don't feel like I can escape the sun. And at first I was so nervous about that when we got back here, like, oh my God, like, I've been in the sun for a few hours. I need to get inside. I shouldn't go out tomorrow. And as the time went on, I started to realize, oh, I actually don't feel bad. I just keep telling myself that if I'm in the sun for too long, I will feel bad. Again, I had to get sick of myself. So I got sick of telling myself that, and I was like, if I don't tell myself that and I just spend the day outside, let's see what happens. Thankfully, mind over matter, I was able to recognize that I felt fine after a whole day in the sun and hiking Pumawanka Mountain. Which was a very emotional moment for me, because I was like, holy shit, how am I able to hike Pumawanka Mountain, but I couldn't walk the streets of Staten Island, New York? Like, this doesn't make sense. Again, the land, the spirits of the land, the people that are giving offerings to the land. So, that. The second piece of the puzzle is that here where I live, we have little like stores, little tiendas, but we don't have grocery stores. So in Staten Island, there would be farmers markets for Dylan and I to go to. And if we knew of a farmers market happening, we would definitely go and make sure we got produce from there, right? But a majority of the time, we were at good old fucking Steez and B's, Stop and Shop. And it's just different shopping at Stop and Shop, whereas here, every single day is a farmer's market. If you want to go food shop, you have to go to the market. And the market is an open air outside market. And the food is being grown by the locals here on their farms. They're picking it, they're bringing it to the market. Like it's a wildly different experience for me. So the reason I didn't even recognize how much the food was helping me. However, last year in September of 2024, one of my best friends got married and I was in the wedding. So we went to visit, and Dylan and I were in New York for 2 weeks. I have quite a sensitive stomach. I'm also allergic to soy, for those of you that don't know. That's been a long time, so it is what it is. But I'm hoping that I turn 28 this year. I'll turn 29 at the end of this year. So last year I turned 28, and I would like to think that this is the beginning of me not being allergic to soy anymore. I will report back if anything changes. As of right now, it has not. So after the 2-week visit, I recognized that my stomach was in knots. Going and getting a sandwich from the deli, I was craving it because I hadn't had it in so long. It tasted horrible. All I wanted was an Amy's vegan margarita pizza, which is a frozen vegan pizza that I have been obsessed with for years. I love it. I ate it and I was like, this tastes terrible. Like all of these things that I was so excited to eat tasted terrible. The only thing that did not disappoint was Ralph's Ices, baby. Shout out, of course. But in terms of all the other things that I was really craving, none of them tasted good. I mean, they tasted fine, but I recognized the way that they sat in my stomach did not make me feel good. But to me, what spoke volumes was Dylan saying to me, because he's got a stomach of fucking steel, it's crazy, was him saying, when we got back here, when we got back to Peru after our 2-week visit in New York, he was like, I felt like shit the whole time we were in New York. Like whatever we ate, he was like, it just didn't taste right in my body, didn't feel right in my body. And I was like, wow, that speaks very loudly to me, because usually I'm usually the sensitive one. And it wasn't that Dylan was sensitive, but we recognized, yeah, now we've been eating at an open air farmer's market every single day. Our produce is fresh, our meats are fresh, like almost everything is fresh. Also, we eat at home a lot because of me having a soy allergy. So we don't really eat out often here. We could eat out, but a lot of the places I still, oils have soy in them. A lot of oils have soy in them. Even fun fact, when I visit New York, there are a lot of restaurants that I cannot visit because they're like, oh, we're an Italian restaurant. We cook with olive oil, but they cut it half with soy oil because obviously it's cheaper, right? So anyway, that's another conversation, a different conversation. So let's take a deep breath. I said a lot of things. I do this with my one-to-ones all the time. If you've ever worked one-to-one with me, you know that I do this often in our sessions, is even in our voice notes that I send back and forth with my clients, is like, how often do we have conversations where we don't take an intentional pause and deep breath, which is why I do that so often for my clients. And I also try to do that here in this incredible podcast. So after recognizing then that the food had been a major shift, this was now last year, October of 2024, right? That's important. That's incredible. Now, let's fast forward to January of 2025, when I started finally being active again. And now when I say active, I don't mean just walking through the mountains here, which obviously I have to do every day. We don't have a vehicle. So to go into town, it's about a 30-minute walk. And then coming back up, depending on how slow you're moving, can be 30 to 45, maybe 60 minutes if you've got a lot on your back. So I'm not talking that active. I'm talking, when I got bit by that mosquito, I couldn't do the things that I was used to, like yoga asana, Pilates, calisthenics. The idea of even going to the gym and picking up a weight was like, there's no way I can do that. If I can't do what my body has been doing since I'm 14 or 15 years old, a traditional, hatha yoga class. How is my body going to lift all of this weight? Like, oh, I'm going to get dizzy. I'm not going to feel good, all this stuff. So I got sick of myself saying that, right? I got sick of that story again. And in January of this year, I decided I am going to go to the gym and got an incredible personal trainer. She's a wonderful, wonderful woman. I want to be totally clear and honest that I still felt horrible about myself when I was first going to the gym, because I used to go to the gym when I was young, right? Like middle school, high school, when I was in college. Before I got bit by the mosquito, my brother used to be a personal trainer, so there was a lot of constantly working out. My mom was also like a workout buff or whatever, guru. She loves to work out, that woman, at 3:15 a.m. So being active was something that was always common for me. I felt so horrible about myself, looking at my body, trying to lift, something as simple as 5-pound weights, and recognizing that I wasn't even halfway through the routine and my body was like really struggling to keep going. And I'm very, very thankful that I got a trainer, because she kept me in the motion of, don't worry, you're gonna get stronger. And that's why, some of us pay personal trainers because we actually need to know how to use the machines and know how to work out. But some of us also use personal trainers for the fact that there's somebody like supporting you and pushing you. But she didn't even just push me. She lovingly pushed me, which was something that I didn't even know that I needed, because I felt bad about myself and I didn't like looking at my body. My body was very out of shape, and I hadn't ever seen my body look like this. Or look like that rather, because now it has changed. And I really just appreciated having that support system there. And the thing was, I started small, and I really hated going to the gym in the beginning. I really fucking hated it. But in a good way, I got sick of looking at my body and going, oh, I really don't like the way this looks on me. I don't like the way this fits. I don't like my arm in these photos, right? Like I was trying to hack when I would be taking photos, like, okay, let me make sure that I move my arm into this position so it doesn't look as big as it is. And I got sick and tired of doing that. And so I kept showing up to the gym, and I kept doing what I felt were like, oh, these are like baby routine workouts. And then one day after working out, I was sitting because I was exhausted, and the idea of even walking to get a moto, to have the moto bring me back home, was too much. And I remember I was doing box breathing. I was doing 4-4-4-4 breathing. And I just started thinking that I'm the only one that was judging me at the gym. I was the only one saying, oh, like, it's crazy that you can't lift more weight. And so I thought about it. What if I was somebody who was recovering from, and I was already obviously recovering from chronic illness symptoms that stuck around way longer than that original doctor had thought. The only doctor that understood why I was still sticking around was the infectious disease doctor. Obviously, that's kind of his specialty. But I was recovering from that, but I thought to myself, like, what if I was really recovering from something where I got into an accident and my body couldn't operate? Like, no one in that gym was ever looking at me going, crazy that she can't work out harder. Crazy that she can't lift more. Crazy that she's winded right now. Like, they were all in their own spaces, but I was projecting this idea because I wanted more for myself. I wanted to see myself back to pre-dengue Dan, or, pre-Holy Trinity mosquito Dan. If you're new here, yes, we call it the Holy Trinity mosquito, because I do think although it stopped so much of what was happening in my life in 2022 and things were like really full speed ahead, I think that mosquito was a blessing. As a space holder and a facilitator, we find that when we go through really challenging experiences in our lives, it just expands our capacity for understanding the clients that come forward. A good example of this is Dylan having many Lyme's disease clients or diabetes clients, right? You can use combo if you have diabetes. It won't get rid of you needing to take insulin, but it will lessen how much insulin, like the time between. And I never understood why his clients would potentially wait, because after they would get the combo, they'd feel so much better. But now, understanding that when you have a good day, the last thing you want to do is feel bad. And if you have never sat with combo before, it is an incredible, incredible medicine. And it's usually a difficult experience. Even if you breathe through it properly and easily and you know what you're coming up against. And me, somebody, I know exactly what I'm coming up against. And every time I'm hitting the mat, oh God, I'm so dramatic. Dylan says I'm his worst client. My brother and I are Dylan's worst clients. We're just so dramatic about the whole experience. So, but now I had sympathy for them prior, but now I have empathy for them because I get it. If you're on a streak where for 3 weeks you feel good, the last thing you want to do is come take the mat with Dylan, even though you know you're going to feel better afterwards. I understand so much more. I even have so much more understanding about people with just chronic burnout, chronic fatigue. Like, I just understand it so much more now. And I also think that comes with age, right? Like last year I turned 28, this year I'll turn 29. I'm learning. I became a space holder and facilitator, and I was only like 22 years old. And, 22-year-old Dan, I love her so much. And she taught incredible yoga classes and led wonderful meditations and breathwork experiences. But, with age just comes more understanding. Because I know, the whole saying, oh, with age comes so much wisdom, but it's just understanding humanity and people and life as their own separate parts. So, all that to say, started working out and really still hated it. Like, I hated having to go to the gym. I hated having to work out. I hated how sore I felt afterwards, and I was just mentally getting really hard on myself. And then again, I got sick of saying that to myself. I got sick of all of that fucking shit. And so then I turned around and I thought, okay, I'm gonna pretend like I enjoy this. I'm gonna pretend like I didn't stop going to the gym because I am sick of this, like, woe is me, pity party shit. And as of May of this year, really, I finally started to realize that I'm lifting the weights easier. I've moved up in literal weight in kilograms, I have my little routine now. I'm back in the flow of things. And I want to recognize two pieces of that. One, really hate to be the one to say it. At this point, I have actually never regretted going to the gym. I just regret how my mindset was about the gym. And the reason why I hate to say it is because I can definitely be a lazy bitch. And so it really sucks when I'm like, damn, I should really go to the gym. And I'm like hemming and hawing with myself because we don't have a vehicle. I have to walk down the mountain to go to the gym and walk back up, which can sometimes feel like a workout in itself, right? And so, but I know once I go, not even how much more proud I will be of my physical body, but mentally how I'm like, hey, I did that for myself. And I want to bring that piece in too, is the realization that I've been having these last 2 weeks really, which is like, I did all of it for myself. And that's incredible. I wish I had the capacity. And of course I'm doing that in like my meditations, and I do a lot of inner child and reparenting gatherings and classes. I do have a Patreon that's $33 a month. You get all the past classes that we've done, and you get whatever classes we have coming up for the month. This month, we just had a class a few days ago. It was a breathwork and somatics class. And the next class we have coming up is only for womb keepers, but it's a cacao and womb healing ritual that I do every year for the Feast of Mary Magdalene. So I do teach often about inner child healing and reparenting. And one thing that I teach about that is that the inner child doesn't need to be 5 years old. The inner child can be 18. They can be 20s, 30s, 40s. It can be you from literally 2 weeks ago. Like, you are all, and I teach it this way for a reason, you are always a child of God. Take a deep breath in. Deep breath out. You're always a child of God. And so when we do inner child work, it's really just doing inner self work, going back to those things. And because I teach about that often, I realized I really needed to go back to Dan from 2022, who was like, I feel like a fucking loser that my brother needs to hold onto my arm and walk me through the park like an old lady. I wish I could go back. And I mean, you know, obviously meditation wise and mentally I am going back, but I wish I could physically go back to Dan from 2023, who was trying to work every single day, right? Because you're an entrepreneur, so work doesn't stop that way. And who was also just loaded with doctor's appointments and other practitioners, you know, going to see the acupuncturist, seeing a hypnotherapist, doing hydrotherapy, and then going to see the neurologist and getting EEGs done and all this stuff. I wish I could go back to her and say, this is the extent of the energy that you have right now. I am so proud of you. Thank you for doing this. Because that is the reflection and the lesson that I'm learning now is like, this is the capacity that I have now. And I do think that changing my environment, changing my circumstances has helped that a lot. But I also think that the idea of understanding, and it's so much easier when we're not in the pits, right? When I was in the pits, if you're in the pits right now and you have just listened to me talk for 45 minutes about this, I'm so sorry, because you're probably like, you stupid fucking bitch, I hate everything you're saying right now. Because that's how I felt. Was that at that time I was listening. I was listening to a lot of people talk about this, and I just couldn't get myself to be like, yes, that's the way, because I was in the pits of it. But I do wish that I could have reminded my own self, not, you know, my teachers, like my spiritual teachers and my community members that were saying like, you got this, like you're good. I wish I could have said to myself, this is my capacity, and I'm so proud of myself for existing within my capacity. My capacity is much different now. Times have changed. Time has moved on. Things are different for my body and for my mind. And now I can walk down a fucking mountain at 13,000 feet above sea level, go to the gym, work out, and walk back up to my home. Yes, my heart is beating out of my chest by the time I get home. It's crazy. I'm like, every time I walk up the mountain, it's disgusting. My mouth is so dry when I get home. But I can do it. And I'm proud of myself for doing it. There is something so incredible about being able to recognize where you're at, though, because although I didn't have this understanding when I was in the pits, I remember thinking to myself, being in the pits is not the worst, though, because it just, again, as a facilitator and a space holder and just a human being, you just have so much more sympathy for all of the things that people are going through in life, because you're like, damn. I hosted a cacao ceremony at my mother's house. It was a rapé and cacao ceremony, which is highly requested by our community. Dylan and I love hosting it. We hosted that ceremony. People were there for about 5 hours. Everyone left. A few hours later, my blood pressure went through the roof. I couldn't see anything. Everything was spinning. Dylan had to take me to the emergency room at 1 a.m. Ceremony started at 5 p.m. People were there for about 5 hours. And then there we were at 1 a.m. in the emergency room after ceremony. And I think back to that experience because it's like, wow, it's that lesson again that like, you know, I called on the spirits of the medicine and I said, like, if we're supposed to do this, like, I need you to support me. And then they supported me through it. People had an incredible ceremony and experience, as they always do, which I'm so grateful for. And then they said, the plant spirit said, okay, now you need to put the focus back on you. Something's still not right within your body. And I don't know, there are people that say to me like, oh, well, emotionally, what do you think this is? Energetically, what do you think this is? I think it's a culmination of things. At one point, Dylan and I talked about, you know, it's for every 9 people that are cheering you on and love you and support you, there's always, you know, one person who's preying upon your downfall. And even if people aren't actively doing spells to bring you down, words have power, at least in my opinion. In my understanding, words have weight to them. And so if people were talking badly about us or didn't want us to move forward in our business, or me to move forward in the things that I was doing specifically for me, there's just something different there. And I think it was potentially that. I also think in my own personal life, I know I am due to give the internet an update of my years now off of antidepressants. I've been doing a series since before I came off of antidepressants, which was like, I'm coming off antidepressants. Here's how spirituality and health and wellness is helping me. And that's back in the day when I was just using Instagram as a platform. And over the years, I have continued to update my community that I'm so grateful that you guys even care to listen. So I think it's a mixture of that. I had to learn how to live without, the antidepressants, they did their job. They supported me in having the capacity to live life. But now I live without those, and I know what it's like to live with that crutch. And I don't say crutch in a bad way. If you need medication, I think you should go on medication. I am a strong supporter of that. My only caveat is that if you go on medication, you need to be working with a therapist. I think taking medication and only seeing your psychiatrist, who is not going to have a long conversation with you on a weekly basis, is not something that is smart. So, my opinion, no one's asking, I'm giving it. We'll take a deep breath, breathe out, and just a culmination of other things. My parents had a really messy divorce. Like I said, I'm no contact with a lot of my family, limited contact with other family, and I think those things, the changes in relationships, the changes in lifestyle, right? Like not smoking marijuana I smoked marijuana almost every single day for 10 years straight, from 14 to 24. Drinking, ton of alcohol. I used to have a coke problem. I did have an abortion, and for some people, they can have an abortion and really move on what seems quickly in their lives. I was a person that it was a very heavy weight for me to let that go and let my body know that it was okay and let my mind know that it was okay. It's 4 years after that decision, and sometimes I still think like, okay, I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about how old the child would have been and all those things. Loss, right? Like I've been very blessed to witness people's death, which is incredible as part of like a death team. But also I think that sometimes weighs on us emotionally and mentally, because how could it not? You get to see how precious being alive is. So I think it's really just a culmination of everything that happened in life. And I do think if there's one thing I could take away, was that the Holy Trinity mosquito allowed me the opportunity and the understanding that everything can change in a moment. And I've had gratitude practices for years. And I shared about this recently on TikTok and Instagram as well. But to go back into this, it makes a difference when our gratitude practices are felt and not just said. Many years ago, I would just write down 3 things I was grateful for every day with my little journal, which was great. It was a fantastic place to start. I really do believe in that. But then at a certain point, I didn't feel it held the weight that I needed it to. So I started doing a practice where before bed every night, out loud, I would say 6 things I'm grateful for. And I would just list off 6 things I was grateful for. And that was it. And then at another point, I realized, again, I felt like I hit a plateau. So something that I also teach, and I taught this recently to a women's circle, is the idea of a sensational feeling. Allowing yourself to close down your eyes. Having gratitude for the simple things, right? Like your earlobes. Having gratitude for the space in between your teeth, your tongue. Gratitude for your 10 fingers and your 10 toes. If you are an OG and you used to come to my yoga asana classes, I always used to say that. Give gratitude for your 10 fingers and your 10 toes. And that's because when I first started teaching yoga asana, I taught to the special needs community, children and adults. And in the special needs community, you've got an array of people who, some of them, it really is a mental thing, but for others, it's a physical thing. So maybe they don't have 10 fingers or 10 toes, right? Maybe they need a feeding tube, like that was something else that I would always say, depending on who I was teaching it to, like, let's have gratitude that we can pick up a fork and feed it to our mouth, and our mouth knows how to chew and our mouth knows how to swallow. And so as I was leading, it literally was only a 15-minute practice that I led for this women's circle. And it was incredible to see how many people were like, holy shit, like, I don't even have gratitude for these like little things. Like, yes, like, does your heart beat on its own by itself? Have gratitude for that. Like, that's incredible that your body knows to do that. Do you take a shit at least once a day? We hope you're taking a poop once a day. If you're not, that's a different conversation. But if your body's doing that, let's give gratitude for that. Like, my digestion system, it's working. Fuck yeah, that's incredible. So if you can, my advice to you is either come to one of our gatherings, and maybe that's one of the things that we'll be doing. Maybe work one-to-one with me. We can also do that in our sessions. But turn a song on for 5-10 minutes, right? Turn any sound on. Close your eyes down. And you can start by saying, maybe I don't feel like I have gratitude for anything right now. I feel like my body is working against me. I feel like my mind is working against me. I feel like life is working against me. Maybe you even say, I feel like God, universe, great spirit, I feel like you're working against me. Name that shit. Let yourself feel that. Like, I am not one of those practitioners or those humans, right? Like, take practitioner out of the equation, that feels like you should just be like, no, like, let's just come at it immediately with gratitude. It's like, no, let's name how you fucking feel. Because when it comes to chronic illness and it comes to chronic symptoms, it's a balance, man, of being like, there are some days now where I'm going to the gym and I'm like, fuck yeah, I feel so empowered. And then all of a sudden I get a pain and I'm like, oh no, is a headache coming on? Is a migraine going to follow this? And so I just say to myself, I'm angry right now because I feel like my head might be working against me. I'm already at the gym. I don't want this to turn into a headache. I don't want this to turn into a migraine. Name it, say it. And then I follow it up with like, and I'm so grateful that I have ankles and my ankles are strong because they allowed me to walk all the way here and they're allowing me to stand here in this gym right now. Obviously, if you can make it more sensual. You can put music on. You can close down the eyes after you've aired your grievances with whoever or whatever it is you need to air your grievances with. You can put that music on and trace your finger over your leg. Okay, I'm grateful that I have a knee and it connects the bottom half of my leg to the top half of my leg. That's pretty fucking cool. It knows how to work on its own. Thank you. And just see where that takes you. And of course, when I'm leading it, we're starting with the actual physical body, but then we're bringing it inside, What's one thing that you're grateful for about your personality, about who you are as a person, about your work ethic or your creativity that you absolutely love? Now, granted, you might listen to me saying this now and you might immediately think of all the negative things about you. When you start these practices, especially for me over these last few years, when I was trying, and I'm using trying on purpose, I was showing up to these practices that I've been teaching and doing for many years, but I couldn't get myself like over the hump, right? So I was trying to get myself to that end goal that I knew was there. And I would just come up with everything that was wrong. I'm glad that I allowed myself to come up with everything that was wrong because I didn't invalidate anything and push anything further beneath. I continue to allow myself to be human while also saying, but I'm not going to stay like this forever. This cannot be my forever. This is not fair for me to be like this forever. And the faith that I have, what I believe in, the God that I believe in, the essence of God is really what I should say, is that I believe that this is a learning experience for me and I have to work with it. Right? Like, let's not throw it out and do that whole, like, it's not a part of me. Maybe right now I feel like it's not a part of me. I feel very good in this moment. I feel very healthy in this moment. But maybe like in an hour from now, all of a sudden something happens and I feel a sensation that makes me feel ill. I'm going to work with it. I'm going to identify the sensation. I'm going to talk to the sensation. And I'm going to say, okay, right now, do I feel like I have the capacity to override the sensation and say like, actually my head doesn't hurt. I just think that my head hurts. Or do I have the capacity to understand that my head actually does fucking hurt right now? And I need to just put a candle on, put the nice little, Michael Sealy on YouTube videos that I love. He's got great meditations. I think honestly at this point, I just like listening to this man's voice. Like, I don't even know if his meditations necessarily work on me. I just like, when I listen to his voice, I'm like, whew. I feel the same way about Brad Yates and his EFT tapping. I've been using him for anxiety since I was 15. Love that man. He doesn't know me, but I love that man with every ounce of my being. So, do I have the capacity to recognize, okay, yes, I actually am in pain. Let me do the things that I know help. I'm going to put my little headache cap on. Maybe I'm going to take a magnesium. Maybe I'm going to take Advil. Maybe I'm going to do a combination of both. Maybe I'm going to have a cup of tea. Like, what do I need to give myself now? And what do I have the capacity for when I'm being radically open and honest with myself? Let's take a deep fucking breath. Fill your belly with this breath in through the nose. And let's let out a nice sound with this. Because if you've gotten through this episode, I cannot thank you enough. Please comment, whether you're on YouTube, Spotify. If Apple has comments, great. If not, come over to Spotify. Come over to YouTube. Drop a comment and let me know what you resonated with, what you don't resonate with. If you have any further questions, I really deeply appreciate this platform, all of these platforms that I have, the people that decide to listen to these conversations. I thought I was going to record a 15-minute video, and my tea is very cold now, and I've been sitting here for an hour. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. Many blessings, many, many, many blessings to you and to yours. And I hope to see you and hear from you very soon.